Bigfoot Classified contains content that is graphic in nature, and listener discretion is advised. Bigfoot Classified relies largely on news documents, eyewitness accounts, press conferences, and interviews. Every episode is produced with respect to the victims, families, and communities involved. Some of the interviews, quotes, and broadcasts have been recreated. Numerous hours of research have been done regarding these stories. And if you have a theory, question, or feel that we've missed something, we encourage you to visit BigfootClassified.com. This is Bigfoot Classified.
Located on the southern edge of the Kenai Peninsula, the ghost town of Portlock, Alaska, once boasting a very modest population of 31 residents, the small cannery town was home to various shops, businesses, and even a post office. In a story of disappearances, unexplained deaths, and a town abandoned, this is part 2 of the case of the Portlock Bigfoot. In 1905, indigenous Aleut fishermen working during salmon season started reporting harassment by a large animal. They referred to this creature as the hairy man and believed it to be the Nantinaq, an evil Sasquatch-like being from their folklore. The fishermen claimed that the Nantinaq wanted them to leave the settlement as retribution for the human destruction of its habitat. The reports of the Nantinaq persisted for months, leading to disruptions in the cannery's operations. The Aleut workers even quit their jobs, attributing it to the creature's interference. Eventually, supervisors negotiated better pay with the indigenous workers, and they returned the following season. However, the whispers and fears of the mysterious Nantinaq remained among the community. In 1920, a group of bow hunters made a gruesome discovery along the banks of the Yukon River. They stumbled upon a drifting houseboat covered in what appeared to be blood. Inside the boat, they found Albert Petka, the owner, gravely injured and near death. Albert managed to recount his encounter with the creature to the bow hunters before succumbing to his injuries. He described a terrifying creature standing at 7 feet tall, covered in fur, and capable of attacking with incredible speed and strength. His injuries were so severe that they couldn't be attributed to any known animal or human. Following Albert's death, the incidents of deaths linked to the Nantinaq continued to escalate. Miners and hunters went missing, and their bodies were found in creeks or scattered in the woods, with authorities unable to determine the cause of the casualties. The locals firmly believed that they were being targeted by the vengeful Nantinaq. In one chilling incident, a miner named Thomas Ween Larson confronted the creature as it destroyed fish wheels on the beach. Larson prepared to defend himself, but suddenly felt an overwhelming force compelling him not to harm the creature. Helpless against this interference, he walked away, haunted by his decision for the rest of his life. As the attacks and disappearances persisted, the community felt like they were being picked off one by one. Cannery workers ventured out in groups but never returned, only to have their mutilated bodies discovered months later. Hunters discovered footprints resembling those of humans but much larger, measuring 18 inches in length. They attempted to track the creature into the dense forest but were unsuccessful, and the deaths continued. The search party eventually found the disfigured corpse of a missing hunter in a creek, with injuries that didn't resemble typical bear attacks. The frequency of deaths and eerie discoveries deeply unsettled the community, prompting fear and causing many to retreat indoors. By the late 1940s, the fear and casualties had driven a mass exodus from Portlock. Settlers and indigenous inhabitants fled to neighboring towns in search of safety. Homes and structures were abandoned, leaving behind a desolate ghost town. By the 1950s, the town had become a forsaken place, and only remnants of civilization remaining. For the next 50 years, Portlock stood abandoned and was eventually erased from the maps entirely. Locals spoke in a hushed tone about the angered Nantinaq who terrorized this town, but only a few brave hunters would dare to take a stroll into the fold. Melania Helen Kell, the oldest living resident who once lived in Portlock, now lives in Nanwalek, Alaska. She recalls various aspects of the past, such as traditional medicines used for healing and techniques for preserving sea lion meat in barrels during the winter. Additionally, she is one of the few remaining individuals who can recount the ghostly tale of the deserted village of Port Chatham and why it was abandoned and avoided by its former inhabitants. She was born on January 25, 1934, in Port Chatham, a small village, and in its early days the village provided shelter for numerous people, including Captain Nathaniel Portlock's ship during his 1786 Alaska expedition. However, when she was a baby, her family abruptly left Chatham, leaving behind their house and every trace of its existence. The reason behind John and Helen Romanoff's decision to flee Nanwalek with their children was a series of frightening incidents that occurred over an extended period. According to the reports, a Nantinaq, a large and hairy creature, terrorized the villagers. Keel also mentioned the presence of a spirit, a woman dressed in a flowing black garment who would emerge from the cliffs. This spirit had an extraordinarily long dress and a pale face, disappearing back into the cliffs. Encountering these spirits caused great fear among the villagers, but the extent of terror escalated when Keel's godfather was fatally struck on the head with a winch while working on a boat in 1931. Keel is not the only one with tales of strange occurrences in Port Chatham. An elder from Port Graham shared his recollection of a gold miner who mysteriously disappeared, with Nantinaq being blamed. Another account involved a sawmill owner named Tom Larson, who encountered the creature on the beach but chose not to fire his gun after a brief exchange of gazes. In an article from April 15, 1973, published in the Anchorage Daily News, the story of the abandoned cannery town of Portlock near Port Chatham was recounted. Rumors spread during the early years of World War II that something was amiss in Portlock. Men who ventured into the hills for hunting never returned, and stories circulated about mutilated bodies found in the lagoon, displaying signs of dismemberment that couldn't be attributed to bears. The article described villagers tracking moose and discovering large man-like footprints closing in on the moose tracks. They would find evidence of a struggle, flattened grass, and then only the tracks of the man-like creature retreating toward the fog-covered mountains. Eventually, the town's residents decided to collectively move away, leading to the closure of the U.S. Post Office in 1950. While Sasquatches gained popularity in the 1960s and 70s in the lower 48 states, the Nantinaq has long been a part of their culture. According to the culture, the Nantinaq may be a different kind of creature, a tragic figure that was once fully human, but transformed into a half-man, half-beast. Elder Nick Tanape acknowledges the validity of the Nantinaq stories, although he has never personally encountered one. Keel mentioned that after her family moved to Nanwalek, the Nantinaq stayed far away, granting them peace. It did not follow them, and they were grateful for that. Keel grew up, raised 13 children, and remains one of the few individuals in Nanwalek who can pass down the old traditions. In 2021, Alaska Bigfoot Killer was released, a 40-day expedition that follows Keith Seville, a resident of nearby Nanwalek and descendant of Portlock's residents and his team. The group of 5 men aimed to track down the mysterious creature while searching the town for its hidden history. Growing up, Seville heard stories from his ancestors and elders about the eerie happenings in Portlock, the town from which his family had fled. Although he initially didn't consider himself a believer, his involvement in the show opened his eyes to the unsettling nature of Portlock. In the TV show Alaska Killer Bigfoot, Keith Seville and his team embark on a captivating exploration of the mysterious town of Portlock. As they delve deeper into their investigation, they encounter a series of unsettling discoveries and experiences that add to the suspense and intrigue surrounding the legendary creature known as Nantinaq. Here are the key aspects they encountered during their exploration. The team begins by delving into the haunting stories and testimonies shared by local historians, elders, and community members. These accounts paint a chilling picture of Portlock's past and the presence of Nantinaq, instilling a sense of fear and intrigue within the team and setting the stage for their exploration. As the team ventures further into Portlock, they experience unexplained and supernatural phenomena. They hear eerie noises, catch glimpses of shadowy figures, and sense a palpable presence lurking among the abandoned buildings and dense forest. These encounters heighten the suspense and raise questions about the true nature of Nantinaq. While investigating the connections between Portlock and the nearby community of Nanwalik, the team learns that the unsettling incidents have also occurred in Nanwalik. This suggests that Nantinaq's influence may extend beyond the boundaries of Portlock, leading the team to confront the possibility that the legendary creature has followed the residents to their new homes. Throughout their exploration, the team discovers mysterious artifacts, cryptic symbols, and intriguing markings scattered throughout Portlock. These findings offer glimpses into the town's hidden history and potentially hold clues about the true nature of Nantinaq and its connection to Portlock. As the team witnesses the impact of their investigations on the local community, their initial skepticism begins to waver. They undergo personal transformations as their first-hand experiences and the compelling stories they uncover challenge their beliefs. Their encounters with the unknown leave them with questioning the existence and true nature of Nantinaq, blurring the lines between myth and reality. Reception to the show was harsh. Viewers pointed out how a lot of the scenes seemed like a setup. Critics also complained about how when danger seemed close, the team ran away, instead of confronting the being, which was the whole premise of the show. And the show wasn't the only cause for concern for skeptics and fence-sitters. In recent years, a Sukpiak woman of Russian Aleut descent, Sally Ash, has been speaking out against the falsehoods that have come out of the Portlock mystery. Sally has deep roots in Nanwalik and speaks her native language. Her ancestral connection stretches to various places in Alaska, including Portlock, where her mother was born. Sally describes her people as nomadic, following the seasons and moving from one place to the other, including Port Chatham, Dogfish Bay, Seldovia, Homer, and even Kodiak. In the context of Portlock, Sally introduces the local legend of Nantinaq, a form of Sasquatch known in their community. Unlike the traditional depiction of Sasquatch as a brute, Nantinaq is regarded as a supernatural being. Sally believes that Nantinaq was once part human and chose to separate from human society, retreating to the forest. Over time, he transformed, growing hair and resembling a Bigfoot. Sally's relatives, including her uncles and grandfathers, have shared stories about Nantinaq, emphasizing that he lives far away from people and does not interact with them. Sally recounts a chilling incident involving her brother at a lake. While tying off his skiff, her brother detected a foul odor emanating from the bushes. As he investigated further, he discovered a hairy and intimidating figure. Sally's brother and their cousin fled the scene in fear, uncertain whether it was a Bigfoot, but disturbed by the strong smell. When asked about Nantinaq, Sally suggests that he is a solitary being who has lived for a long time. He is described as old, tall, strong, and covered in hair. Nantinaq resides in the woods, and people can sense his proximity through the distinct odor he emits. Sally's mother spoke about Nantinaq and shared stories about encounters, particularly in the Dogfish area. Sally explains that her family was aware of Nantinaq's presence, but maintained a respectful distance, treating him with kindness but avoiding close interaction. Nantinaq was agile and quick, often moving to different locations. Sally served as a translator for her cousin, Melania Kill, during an interview in 2009 that gained attention in the world of Bigfoot enthusiasts. Melania claimed that the entire town of Port Chatham had evacuated in 1949 due to a murderous Nantinaq. However, Sally clarifies that Melania fabricated this story to address persistent inquiries and that the account was not true. Sally's family and community were aware of the invented story, but chose not to confront her due to the cultural values that discourage challenging elders. According to Sally, the decision to leave Port Chatham and relocate to Seldovia and Nanwalik was primarily driven by practical factors, such as the economy, access to schools, and the presence of a church. Additionally, the construction of the Alaska Highway Route 1 to Kenai and Homer redirected traffic away from Portlock. Sally suggests that Melania's fabricated story may have stemmed from a desire to protect the area and preserve its significance. Port Chatham holds cultural importance for the Sugpiaq people as a place where their ancestors lived and were buried. While there have been reports and investigations concerning Nantinak, Sally advises against actively searching for him. She states that Nantinak is elusive and can transform into different animals, making it difficult to track him down. Sally warns against shooting at him, as it is believed that he cannot be killed. Sally and her community approach the topic with caution, respecting Nantinak's space and avoiding disturbances in the areas where he may reside. Although Nantinak is no longer seen in Nawalik, Sally affirms that they no longer encounter him there. She states that Nantinak and others like him have moved far away from human settlements, seeking solitude. Sally's account highlights the difference between the stories of Nantinak causing harm and the reality experienced by her community. There is no substantiated evidence of the dozens of reported murders and disappearances attributed to Nantinak in Port Chatham. The only documented death in the town was an accident involving a logger and logging equipment. Sally's perspective emphasizes that while the legend of Nantinak has always been known among the Sugpiaq people, the notion of a bloodthirsty creature causing mayhem is a misrepresentation. Nantinak is regarded as a reclusive being, preferring to keep his distance from humans rather than engage in violence. Sally cautions against the intrusive pursuit of Nantinak and emphasizes the importance of respect and understanding their ancestral ties to the land. And as far as the legend of Portlock, we, like many other podcasts covering this topic, used an article written in 2009 by Naomi Kluda and the information she gleaned from speaking to residents in and close by the town as the main source. Her primary source was a 1973 article from the Anchorage Daily News. Unfortunately, only an excerpt of the article remains, which was included in John Green's book, Sasquatch: The Apes Among Us. This provided basic stories about Bigfoot attacks in Port Chatham, but lacked specific details. The article claimed that the people left the area solely due to these Bigfoot attacks in 1949 and refused to return. Kluda's second source involved interviews with two elderly Alaska natives who grew up in Portlock and were living in Port Graham at the time of the interview. One of the interviewees, Melania Helen Kell, was born in Portlock in 1934 and added additional details to the story. Kell shared the names of the men who were either killed or went missing. She stated that her parents left Portlock because they could no longer tolerate the constant attacks by the Nantinak. To verify the claims made by these sources, researchers needed to seek corroborating evidence. They turned to the Alaska Digital Newspaper Program, which provided access to a large collection of scanned newspaper pages from the late 1700s through 1963. However, they found no reports of extraordinary killings or dismemberments in the news articles related to Portlock. Most of the articles were focused on commercial fishing, with only a few deaths reported, and mostly due to accidents. Regarding crimes, only one notable incident was reported. In 1924, the Portlock postmaster, George Hink, was arrested by the Probation Enforcement Bureau for possessing moonshine. There were no records of any murders or dismemberments. As for missing person reports, only one was found, which involved two hunters named Ben Swayze and Bill Weaver from Seward. They went on a 2-week trip by dory boat in 1917 and were never seen again. The mention of Portlock in the story was only because a report came from there about the discovery of a dory that seemed similar to theirs. However, Seward and Portlock are geographically distant, making it unlikely that Bigfoot attacks in Port Chatham are responsible for the disappearance. Regarding the word Nantinak associated with the Portlock creature, it proved challenging to pinpoint the exact origin. Native language preservation groups were contacted to investigate its existence in different languages, but no record of Nantinak was found. However, there's a word similar to it. Nantina, in the Dena'ina Alaskan language, refers to a folklore character that kidnaps children. and is used to caution them against wandering into the woods. It is speculated that Nantinaq is a version of Natina due to the linguistic connections between the languages in the Portlock area. The ultimate reason for the abandonment of Portlock was probably unrelated to Bigfoot or any violent creatures. It was primarily due to the completion of Alaska Route 1 during the 1940s, which provided efficient transportation between Anchorage and the towns along the Kenau Peninsula. This led to the rapid growth of the other towns that could be easily accessed through the highway, while isolated places like Portlock became less viable. The convenience and cost-saving factors prompted the relocation of the town's population. The closure of the Portlock post office in 1950 marked the final chapter in the town's history. Despite the claims of the Bigfoot attacks and the use of the word Nantinaq and the Portlock monster story, available evidence might suggest otherwise. The accounts from the Anchorage Daily News article and the interviews do not align with the historical records of the newspaper articles from the time. The town of Portlock was likely abandoned for non-cryptid reasons. But that's not to say a Sasquatch isn't lurking in the Alaskan landscape. As recently as 2023, sightings of Sasquatch-like creatures have been reported around Alaska. Over the last decade, more and more sightings have been reported, with the creature seemingly less concerned about being spotted. In the summer of 2009, the following report was made to the BFRO, which stands for Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization.
It was the month of July 2009 in Fairbanks, Alaska. I was heading south on Auburn Drive toward Farmers Loop, which was about 1 mile away. It is a wooded area frequented by homes, and in general would be considered a populated area. Houses are on an average of about 100 to 200 feet apart, with only the general area around and close to the homes cleared out. Most of the area, by far, is wooded. It was the section of the road where it passes by Pearl Creek Elementary School. The school can be seen through the woods. Some of the woods in the area are quite thick, and in some places can be seen into more than about 10 to 15 feet. But in this area, it had apparently been cleaned out quite a bit, and sight inlets into the section of the siding were very open. The school and vegetable garden could be seen off to the right from the road I was on. It was about 6 p.m., and I was heading home after a day of working on a deck I was building. The weather was clear, with the sun high in the sky. As I was driving, I happened to notice a man standing by the right side of the road about 100 yards ahead. It was more of an unconscious recognition. There is nothing unusual about a man standing on the side of the road in this area. As I got to within about 50 yards, I looked closer. "That's no man," I said to myself. I was alone in the car. Shortly after that, 1 or 2 seconds, he bolted into the woods towards the school. He did it like a wild animal would do, if spooked. I didn't slow down until I got to the place where I saw him go into the woods, which is where I stopped. I could see him running away from the road, and when he was into the woods about 30 yards or so, he turned left and was now running parallel to the road in the same direction I was heading. I got a good look at him, but not his face. I could have probably seen his face had I not been so mesmerized and had the presence of mind to look at it. I was busy noticing other things. His fur or hair looked to be about 3 to 4 inches all over the main part of his body. It was a reddish, rusty color. I was mildly struck by how red it was, but it definitely had some rustiness to it. He was about 6 feet tall and looked to weigh about 200 pounds. He ran with a strange, hoppy kind of run. It wasn't a limp. With one foot he pushed off with was more a normal running move, but the other foot he pushed off with propelled him upward about a foot or less, and forward. I watched him until he disappeared into the woods. There was a road about 100 yards ahead, and I took off to get to it so I could turn right, and in 20 yards turn right again to the road that led to the school parking lot. So the wooded area he was in was sort of a peninsula, and he seemingly had to be in there somehow, somewhere. The woods I was looking into from that angle were quite thick, and I didn't see him and haven't seen him since. A little farther, up on the right, was the school garden that had people in it, about 7 to 10, which I'm now sorry I didn't stop to go talk to them about it. The next day, as I was driving into work on the deck, I naturally slowed down in the area I saw him. I stopped actually, and was surveying the area when a couple walking their dogs were approaching. I flagged them down and told the story of what happened the evening before, and they told me that about a week before, they were with their dogs and were on the way to the other side of the school property, by the soccer field, and 3 kids came running over to them saying, "Did you see the Sasquatch?" They also said that what appeared to be a dad was with them who didn't seem too excited about it. My conclusion to whether it was real or not is summed up by saying, it was either real or there was a man in a very, very convincing costume. I reported it to the Fish and Game Office in Fairbanks a couple of days later. The person who was taking the report was sort of rolling his eyes through the whole thing, as he seemed to be writing it down on a piece of scrap paper. I even had to ask him to take my phone number just in case.
The report noted that the weather conditions were clear and sunny, and that there were other witnesses who had possibly seen the creature. Responding to the report, BFRO researcher Charles Lamica wrote,
"I was intrigued by this report because I used to live very near the area where this sighting occurred. I interviewed the witness telephonically and found his story to be credible. The interview resulted in the following additional information. First, the entire sighting, from first glance to last seen, was under 30 seconds in duration. The creature was about 100 yards away when first seen, but as the sighting progressed, the distance was reduced to about 20 to 30 yards. Second, the witness didn't get a good look at the creature's face or its feet. He described the shape of the head as being a cross between that of a human and a gorilla. The hair on the body seemed to be fairly uniform in length, about 3 to 4 inches, and was not matted or scruffy looking. Third, he has no explanation for the unusual gait of the creature, and could not speculate as to the possibility of an injury or deformity that might cause it. Fourth, the witness says he is inclined to believe what he saw was a real non-human animal, but it was definitely not a bear. He recognizes that there is a remote chance that someone could have been carrying out a hoax, but he indicated that if it was someone in a costume, it was so convincing that it would have to be a costume of Hollywood professional quality.
The mystique of Bigfoot continues to captivate the hearts and minds of countless individuals in and around Alaska. And despite the skepticism and the lack of concrete evidence, there remains a compelling case for the existence of this elusive creature. While the specific accounts and stories discussed may not provide conclusive proof, they serve as a reminder of the rich tapestry of folklore and cultural beliefs that surround Bigfoot. The enduring nature of these legends passed down through generations speaks to a collective human yearning for the unknown and the extraordinary. While this search for Bigfoot may be challenging, it is through open-mindedness, exploration, and a willingness to consider alternative perspectives that we can deepen our understanding of the natural world and the hidden wonders it may hold. In the third part of this season, we dive into the mysteries surrounding the Alaska Triangle and explore the possibility that the Sasquatch is responsible for the high death count the state faces.